Good. Because I was just using a slightly different microphone today. So let's just start by taking in a few deep breaths, just to indicate to our bodies that we're opening up a new chapter in this day, in this moment, perhaps even a new beginning, which is actually what this practice is essentially. When you try to understand it intellectually through the mind, and that's almost inevitable simply because everything that enters into our experience, this whole world around us, it has to pass through these five senses, and then the information that is gathered through these five senses, again, they get filtered through this energy field called the mind. Michael Singer, he refers to the mind. He's a wonderful teacher. And he refers to the mind simply as an energy field that can be programmed. And so right now, our experience at this moment, up until this moment, our experiences have simply been interpretations, translations of this world around us through this energy field we call our mind. And so if you find yourself to be happy most of the time, at peace, content, it means that some of these programs are actually serving you and me, of course. And if we find ourselves unhappy, stressed, worried, going through anxieties, it simply means that some of these programs that do not serve us are still running quite predominantly within this mind of ours. From an intellectual point of view and understanding this practice, let's just remind ourselves that this is a practice where we begin to step into the present moment. Almost as though every moment were the only moment, every moment was a new beginning, a new start. And we will use the bell to symbolize this new beginning. Today we can simply visualize ourselves as our old selves, wearing these masks, these personalities, these bodies which our minds have somehow identified and associated themselves with. These personalities with the name Vinod or whoever it is that your body's called. When we hear the bell, let's imagine ourselves unzipping this costume that we wear, this costume, this personality that has accumulated attainments, academic, financial, or perhaps it's the lack of achieving those which we grew up believing we had to. When we hear the bell, let's unzip, let's step outside of these bodies, these personalities, and just imagining ourselves all over again, climbing into these chairs, landing on these cushions, these mattresses, wherever it is that we find ourselves, seeking out the various sensations that we can experience. You can imagine yourself releasing all of those burdens, letting go of all of the luggage that we have up until this moment been carrying around with us. And this moment, it simply begins very simply with the surfaces underneath you that you find your body in contact with. And just a few words about postures, about your body's postures, because I know we often assume that we have to sit down in a particular posture with the spine upright and all of that. But I know that some of us, we have certain discomforts, certain conditions within our body that prevent us from feeling that comfortable when seated in these traditional postures. What we are seeking is simply a posture that allows us to balance comfortably so that you're no longer pushing against. And so, if you're uncomfortable in any way, give yourself permission to change your posture, to move, to shift at any moment during this practice so that you notice your body a little bit less. And I suppose what I'm referring to is when I say you notice your body a little less, you're not pushing against comfort, towards comfort, or against discomfort. You're just allowing your body to be as it is while you begin this process of observing the body with its various sensations, both sensual, from the sense of hearing, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, sense of sight, if any. And finally, the movements of the mind. And you will notice that it's so much easier to watch the mind now than before. Simply because more often than not, we drown ourselves in conversations, in books, in stimulation, in all forms of stimulation, which somehow distract us, take us away from this opportunity to simply sit or lie down, breathe, and observe these movements. Today, we can consider this the first day in our practice, as we always do as beginners, discovering all that we may discover as we enter into this present moment, free of ideas, free of expectations, free of knowing, completely open, so that we may begin what forms the essence of this practice, the development of a new relationship with our mind, a new relationship where we simply develop the ability to observe the movements of our mind from a space that is so much larger than the mind itself. From a space that many teachers often refer to as the space of kindness, the space of wisdom, a space of deep understanding, and where initially you need patience, simply because at the beginning, most of us are so identified with our mind, and the mind is so used to doing, to acting, to talking, to reading, to absorbing, that it may initially appear as though we are doing absolutely nothing. And so initially, as you find yourself identified with the mind, wondering what's going on, you'll notice impatience, boredom, and then you generate that quality called patience, as you still exist within this concept called time. And with the ringing of this bell, you enter a little bit more into the present moment, where you know you may now begin discarding of patience, simply because you find yourself entering into a space that is timeless, a space which teachers like Eckhart Tolle refer to as the present moment, now. Free of the need to go anywhere. And in a practice such as this, go somewhere can often mean I want to get to that place of being stress-free or anxiety-free as soon as possible. No, we release that. Here's the bell to help you release every expectation and desire that you brought with you as you entered into this practice. And if you're a spiritual person or a religious person, it might also involve that concept, that label called enlightenment. Release. As you simply focus on this very simple fact of yourself either sitting here or lying down, your body breathing, your awareness of your thoughts, which more often than not will still be moving. Your thoughts will still be moving. And you can use visualizations to understand this new relationship that we are tapping into. This new relationship with our mind. Those of us here in the UK, the skies are very blue outside, but there are clouds scattered about, white fluffy clouds. If you can bring into your mind's eye this sky, wherever in the world you are right now, the blue sky with those little fluffy clouds floating about, moving in a particular direction. And these thoughts, they will represent, these clouds, they will represent our thoughts. And at this point, you might even notice which part you are more identified with. Are you at this particular moment moving with one of those clouds, or perhaps a group of clouds? Or are you a part of the space that surrounds the clouds? Can you notice how different these two aspects are? The space, constant, unmoving, still to a large degree. And the clouds constantly moving, constantly changing, constantly, so to speak, evolving. Let's begin with the beginners. Let's begin as beginners. Let's assume that we're all at that place where we are confused, we're worried about something, we are feeling one of those experiences that we often refer to as being stressed, needing to be somewhere else, wanting things to be different, maybe even angry, sad, depressed. Now imagine this to take the form of some very dark and gray clouds. A storm, which is probably what many of those emotions often feel like. And so if we are going through one of these moments, just simply begin by visualizing yourself smack in the middle of one of these storms, these storm clouds. Not even the storms, but in the middle of the cloud. So you're surrounded by this fog. There's no clarity, there is confusion. It can sometimes feel extremely scary with thunder and lightning, flashes of lightning all around us. Now, in this practice, our initial aim as beginners is to simply stop moving with the clouds. So it doesn't mean completely disassociating ourselves with the clouds. It doesn't mean attempting to stop the movement of the clouds, which is what we often feel. I shouldn't be feeling this. I shouldn't be feeling angry. Spiritual people should be feeling peaceful and kind and loving and joyful all the time. And that's not how I feel. And then you start beating yourself up and tying yourself, bonding yourself to these fast moving clouds. But when I ring the bell, just find yourself on your cushion or your chair. Just anchor yourselves on whatever surface it is that you find yourself on. Your heads are still amidst the clouds, amidst the storm, but you've stopped moving with the clouds. And there is an immediate flash of awareness. And that awareness leads you to the knowing that this storm, these clouds will move on. They will pass. And initially, when your head is still completely covered and misted up by these clouds, it is that moment where you call upon that quality called patience, a knowing, sitting, breathing, and knowing that it is passing, that it is moving. As Eckhart Tolle often says, this too will pass. This too will pass. You anchor yourself. And soon you will notice the silhouette, the clouds getting thinner and thinner. Ultimately, maybe not in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe not in the next 3 hours, 5 hours, 5 days, maybe not immediately, but it's passing. The clouds are thinning. You're sitting, you're breathing, you're watching. And then the clouds, they finally pass. And then there are the blue skies, or if it's nighttime in your visualization, there are the stars and the moon and everything else that you can see in a cloud-free sky. And for a glimpse, you just get a glimpse of how this forms the essence of the practice. A shifting of identification from thought, from mind, which is simply an accumulation of thoughts, a group of thoughts that have become beliefs. A shifting from clouds to this space, which is initially simply a gap between two clouds. the space between two clouds, and then you will notice the next cloud arriving. And this is almost a certainty simply because of the momentum that each and every one of us has picked up in our lives. The different experiences, the different parents, the different schools, the different books and magazines, and everything else forming these little water droplets that make up these clouds, appearing very real but quite transparent, phantoms through which you can move your hands and your limbs without actually gathering or holding on to anything at all. Mirages. But as we move deeper, a little bit deeper into the practice, and for this I direct you to your breath. Another tool that we can use to anchor ourselves and ground ourselves into the present moment. Begin detecting the various sensations that you can experience through your nostrils, through your nasal passage, through the insides and the outsides of your chest, through the insides and the outsides of your stomach, all playing a role in this process called breathing. And as we explore these sensations, or rather each and every sensation, from the temperature of the breath flowing in and then out, notice how the outflow and the exhalation is slightly warmer. The humidity levels, again the out breath, so much more humid as the air moves out of the nostrils, down the nasal passage, down the upper lip. You find yourself shifting your identification, not only from the clouds to the gaps between the clouds, but find yourself breathing a breath of relief as you begin discovering that you are now discovering that space underneath the clouds, where it becomes so much more clear the groupings, the shapes, the formations of the clouds. That space, your identification shifting into that space between the cloud and the mountain. That space between the cloud and the blade of grass lying at the bottom of the field. That space between the cloud and the grains of sand that lie in the desert. That space between the cloud and the surfaces of the seas and the oceans and the rivers and the lakes that surround this planet. And it becomes a little bit easier, doesn't it, to now observe the clouds, observe these movements, observe the storms, knowing that they are all changing, all moving, as you anchor yourself into that which is unchanging, unmoving, that which is constant, that which is stillness itself. And as you focus on your breath, and this time your attention moving down into your stomach, and deeper into your body, feeling the ballooning of the insides within your stomach, feeling the stretch of skin around your stomach as it brushes against your clothing or whatever it is you have around that region, whatever fabric you have there, or perhaps even a blanket. Your identification now shifting into that space behind the clouds, that space that is so much more vast, infinitely more vast. That space that initially you notice it to only reach the moon, and then beyond to the other side of the moon, all the way towards and around the sun. And the space it goes on between the sun and the other stars, the other universe, the other galaxies, and all else that makes up this space we refer to as our universe. And if you have a slightly scientific mind, you may already know that scientists, their calculations, they appear to indicate and point towards only 8% of that which exists. Covering this so-called material universe made up of atoms and molecules, of countless stars, of countless galaxies, making up only 8% of that which exists. This 8% capable of reflecting light and therefore capable of being experienced through the five senses. But in this practice, we move beyond this. And when I ring the bell, just be here in this present moment. Which many teachers refer to as awareness, as consciousness, as presence. That which is beyond the mind, that which is beyond this universe of matter, of atoms, of molecules, of particles, of energy. All accessible as the infinite present moment. Always the present moment. We sit. We breathe. We listen. not only to my voice and the sound of this bell, but to all of the sounds around you, around me that represent this present moment. All of the smells, the tastes, even the visuals. Despite our eyes being closed, the shadow of light that plays through our eyelids still representing our present moment. And now, take a peek at your mind. See your thoughts as the clouds you visualized. Notice how much easier it is to observe from this space called the present moment. And then notice some of the qualities within the mind, of the mind, how it creates time, how it can only survive and exist within that concept called time. How it brings back events, voices from the past. How it projects itself into the future. And even in this present moment, if you can find yourself complaining about anything about this present moment, whether it's that story that we call finances, one of those stories called physical health or body shape or body color, or status, if there is anything, and something as simple as just an annoying sound around you or a sensation within your body, anything that you find yourself complaining about at this moment, including the thinking mind, are indicators that we are comparing this present moment to another moment in the past, which we are attached to, or some moment in the future that we are again identified with or have identified with. And so every complaint about the present moment becomes a very precious and valuable tool in our practice, an opportunity to discover the extent to which we so often identify ourselves as thought, as beliefs, as the mind, and then with the ringing of this bell, release. And what happens when you release the clouds? You no longer travel with them. You no longer move with them. You ground yourself through your breath, through your bodily sensations, through the sounds that you hear in this present moment, welcoming, allowing all of the sensations, all of the sounds, even the movements within your mind, giving them permission. And the result is the shift from identification with the movement, with the mind, to this spaciousness, this awareness, this presence, this consciousness that is unchanging. That is, through practice, we will find to be our very essence. But of course, that's me telling you something. We call this a contemplative practice simply because it is for us to discover the truth or falsity of these words and never to blindly accept. And now I'm going to ring the bell. This time to give us all an opportunity to change postures, to drink, to stretch, to move, to just be a little bit more comfortable. Here comes the bell. If you've been struggling at all with this practice, especially if you're new and you're not accustomed to sitting for this long, give yourself permission to take a break, to leave the practice. But if you choose to stay, one very easy way in which to stay is to simply release all notions that you are here to meditate, to be mindful, to practice mindfulness or meditation, and simply call this a sitting and a practice of breathing. Two functions that we are very much accustomed to, but that we simply bring a greater degree of awareness to. Because breathing just happens, as we know. But right now, at this particular moment, we're just a little bit more aware that we are breathing. And this awareness, it takes the form of just noticing the sensations behind and around every breath that we take in and that we release. And in this part of the practice, we'll move into a visualization. A visualization that I know many of us who have been quite consistent in this practice, in this group, are quite familiar with. And so once again, we release all previous practices. We will move into the mountain visualization. But first, here's a bell to release all previous practices. So you find a new mountain today with your mind's eye. And to those of us who are new, we remind ourselves why we often use the mountain. Simply because as on this planet, amongst most of the structures, the mountain more permanent than many of the other structures, at least more permanent in the sense so far as those that are visible to us through our senses. But even the mountain, we recognize how it changes over many millions of years. How there are movements within the crust of the earth that are constantly affecting it. And so that's a little bit like us. So do you have an image of a mountain in your mind? It can be a mountain that you've seen with your own eyes. It can be a mountain from National Geographic or one of your favorite magazines or movies. But feel the sheer scale of it, its shape, its peak. Visualizing from a distance so that you get a feel for its scale. And then gradually, with the ringing of this bell, begin merging this image into your body. Or rather, your body becoming this image, becoming this mountain. Your shoulders relaxing themselves, allowing your shoulders to fall, becoming the slopes, the sides of this great mountain. Feeling your chest muscles and the skin around your upper back, becoming the front and the back of this great mountain. And feel the breath in between the chest wall and the back muscles. The breath flowing downwards through the mid regions of your body, through the stomach. I hope your body feels stable. And feel this stability. Feel these points of contact between body and surface underneath it. And then notice how this mountain merges into the earth. And with the ringing of this bell, let the lower parts of your body dissolve into the surfaces underneath you. So much so that your center of gravity lowers itself into the flooring underneath you, into the earth underneath your building that you find your body in. Grounding, anchoring into the only moment that ever exists, this present moment. And this can actually even be a continuation from the earlier practice of observing clouds and storms. Because as you observe within your mind's eye the space around this mountain, you see the clouds, you see the mist, you see all manner of movement, from rain and snow to the changes in light, where day moves into night and night into day. You see the changing seasons of summers turning into autumns and autumns into winters, and a cycle that continues into spring and summer and on and on. Noticing how easy it is to get caught up in the story of change. And then use the bell to return back into this knowing that you are this mountain. Sitting here breathing a great rock of pure awareness, of pure consciousness. and noticing every moment your identification shifts from mountain to cloud, from mountain to storm, from mountain to season, from mountain to changing light. And simply notice, and then become the noticer of this change, this mountain, this awareness. And then notice how this mountain supports a whole ecosystem of life. Almost exactly the way in which our bodies sustain these trillions and trillions of cells that make up our bodies. Every salmon, every bear, every mountain lion, every leaf, every blade of grass, every flower, every petal, every fruit. No different from the trillions of cells that make up our bodies. And then focus on the way in which the mountain observes without needing to change anything at all. It simply observes, it allows, it is in a constant state of being. Not directing the salmon to swim in a particular direction. Not demanding particular behavior from the bears and the mountain lions and the rabbits and the butterflies. Simply allowing. In this state of stillness, in this state of kindness, giving, constantly and consistently allowing and giving and serving. Free of demands, free of conditions. Let us experience this state of being for a few moments. Not thinking about it, but simply absorbing it as an experience that we can return to over and over again until we find ourselves more consistently grounded within this space, practicing our way into it rather than forcing. And now, when we listen to the bell, an exercise in allowing, releasing pockets of tightness, of effort, of stress and tiredness that we may find within the cells of our body. Beginning with the scalp, when I ring the bell, relax the skin around your scalp. Loosen the thin layer of muscle underneath the scalp. And find how, as you release, as you relax this region, you find your eyebrows easing, your eyelids, your facial muscle, almost as though there was a warm layer of oil, very nice smelling oil, making its way down this whole region into the back of the head, the sides of the head, and you simply experiencing it as ease, as letting go of relaxation, where you allow all of the cells, not only at the surface level, but within where the brain is, to find balance, to find equilibrium, to repair, to heal. Flowing down the face, through the sense of hearing, all of the tiny bones within the eardrum, all of the cells that make up the eyes, including the muscles around the eyes, the pressure within the eyes. The nasal passage, the breath, the mouth, the jawbone, the cheeks, down through the neck. Still at the peak of this mountain, can you notice? Still at the peak of this mountain, grounding, anchored, aware. And then the shoulders, the arms, the elbow, the fingers, the hands that make up the sides of this mountain. Maybe even dropping a little bit more under the weight of the arms, the chest and the back, the stomach and the lower back. And then the pelvic region, and all of those different points of contact that you can experience between your body and the surfaces underneath you. The muscles within your upper leg, loosening, relaxing, finding ease. And then the knee joint, the calves and the shins and the ankles and all of the tiny bones within the feet. Here, releasing an intention that you, the personality, once again, known as so and so, whatever your name is, steps outside of this body, no longer interfering with the workings of the body, so that all repairing, all balancing, all healing begins to take place from within and continues even beyond this hour that we have together. The soles of your feet and your toes, so that you now experience yourself as this sitting, breathing rock that is awareness, that is presence, that is consciousness. Noticing the ability to shift our identity from the clouds onto this present moment. into awareness. And not trying to invoke our mind, not attempting to remember this practice, but simply basking in the experience so that we may return to this experience at will through our intention, by simply being, by simply sitting, by simply breathing, by simply allowing this present moment to be experienced in its entirety from moment to moment and breath to breath as we hear the final bell in today's practice. Really want to thank you all for joining in today's practice. Thank you, my dear friends. Hope to see you all very soon. Take care. Hello, Bela. Pleasure. Pleasure. Bye-bye.